Hey, it is time for another episode of Movies Worth Talking About. I am John Carlos, and I'm here with
Eddie of Edward is
Eddie
Truth.
at Edward is Truth. And you can find the show at Movies We're Talking About on Instagram. And Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Did you hear Eddie's sigh, everybody?
It's like half happiness, like
Yes.
elation, and half bone chill terror. Like this movie works on me.
Yeah. So I'm going to start this off with a question for you.
Oh fuck.
No, nothing like because you give me like, hey, what would you? Here's some like, what are the three things you would put in this room? And I'm like, oh fuck, let me think about it. No, this is just a very simple question. Because I've never asked you this directly, but over the tenure of our friendship, I know that Leatherface bothers you. That Texas Chainsaw as a movie works on you. What is it about Leatherface that really like gets under your skin? Like, tell me why.
Okay. The tried and true answer, and it's developed, but the tried and true answer is that nothing, for as long as I can remember, nothing has frightened me more than fear. Like somebody who means me harm but is afraid. And yeah. Also, someone who means me harm, who cannot be coerced.
Yep.
Out of it. I can't offer money. I can't talk you down off the ledge, ask you to look inside your heart and please let me go. And if I tried with the Leatherfaces of, like not the original, I don't think I'm his type. So I don't think it would ever work. Also, I'd be too scared. I couldn't even. So there's fear, and there's that. Also, it's everything. It's the remoteness. See, you're making me agitated. I can't. I'm getting anxiety. It's the remoteness. It's the fact that like this particularly in the original film, just the house sitting there, God knows what going on inside of it, and the world is just passing it by. Like you get the sense these folks are never going to get caught, and or never going to get caught fast enough. Like there's so many bones in that house.
Well, yeah, they clearly haven't been caught already.
Yeah.
And if you use the first four movies as a perfectly linear saga, which it really barely isn't, but you could argue like they do continue to get away with it all through the 90s.
Yeah, and I think in addition to that, it's probably the fact that it's hard when you feel sympathy for what you're afraid of. Like, I mean, I'm afraid of. I guess I'm afraid of like the whole idea of just remoteness and people with unlimited power within their means, but also the fact that Leatherface is carrying out orders. He seems, particularly in the original, largely programmed to be this way and not question, just kind of try to appease his family and see, I can't. It's getting to me.
We can move on.
Also, it's size. He's bigger than me.
Well, and yeah, and well, I mean, he's wearing lifts, so does that make you feel a little better?
No, I've been through. We can talk more about this later, but I've been through, I think, about four or five different mazes at Universal Studios where Leatherface has been featured or starred. And every single time, either reboot Leatherface or OG motherfucker Leatherface, doesn't matter. Makes me so uncomfortable. So there's all that. And also the fact that I do feel bad for him. Like, I mean, there's a tragedy to him.
There is.
That I can't access. I can't allow myself to feel empathy because I'm just too busy screaming my mind out.
And even, and we'll touch on this with some of the sequels, but the it's very hard to empathy. What little empathy you feel like inclined to feel, it's kind of, I snap right out of it because I'm like, no, no, but they're murderers. Like they murder, like go look at their fucking bone furniture.
I mean, it depends on the movie. We'll get
Yeah.
there, but also
So yeah.
the dead flesh thing. Dead flesh.
All right.
Noises. Yeah, can't.
Noises.
All
All
of it.
right.
It's like the whole. The answer is all of it. Everything that you associate with Leatherface scares me.
Okay, cool. It's yeah. It's I don't have that. I just like them. I just like it. I like, you know, and I mean I'll get into, you know, but I even got. Will it traumatize you if I just show you like an action figure? Like, all right.
I don't. I mean, I've been watching this. Stop it! I've been watching these.
It's okay. It's gone. It's fine. It's fine. It's not.
You suck.
Right.
I fucking hate you. No, it's just. I've been watching these over the course of the last 4 days, and I've gone to sleep. Well, not to sleep. I've gone to bed, terrified that I'm going to have a nightmare with Leatherface in it, because stop it! I've yet to have one, which is good. I mean, in my life, I've never had a nightmare about Leatherface. And saying that, I feel like I'm cursing myself, and I'm terrified.
I've had a dream about Jason.
I've had one about Freddy. Or I had a couple about Freddy when I was in 3rd grade. Totally.
I had one about a goblin that looked kind of like the leprechaun, but it wasn't the leprechaun, but it sure looked like him.
I had plenty where my toys came to life and attacked me.
The fucked up thing is I don't get scared by Jason watching the movies, but in my dream it was scary as shit. But you know, dreams have their own tones and their own. It was still like a hulking guy coming after me, and that shit was scary. And I broke through the window of the car with a fist and a machete, and it was scary as fuck.
So, the thing is, Jason's gonna kill me. Like, so I'll just be like, okay, I'm just gonna die. Like Leatherface is gonna take you. Yeah, exactly. Or I mean, he could kill me, but he could potentially just saw me enough to get me incapacitated or pass out, and then just take me back. And then I wake up and I'm there. Fuck that. No.
Although, okay, I will say, I don't know if this is comforting for you, but
no.
You have a penis, so chances are you're gonna get whacked with a mallet, or you're gonna get gutted with a chainsaw really quick. Because it's usually if you look at that first movie, they spare the women, but the dudes die like right away.
Yeah, but if I'm with women I care about, we'll get there. But there are scenarios that I wouldn't want them to have to go through, that I find terrifying posthumously.
Well,
there's no silver lining. You're not going to talk me off the ledge.
Okay, sorry. Then I won't even bother. Okay. For those who are watching, because let's dive into the first movie. This is part 1 of you know, I don't know, but we'll see where we go. But come back for part 2, because there's 2 movies in this franchise, and we're not covering all 8 in this one episode. First thing I gotta say about this, and it's funny because I've seen this movie countless times, and for some reason my brain always does this. It remembers it. Like, sure, it's cheap, and yeah, it looks and feels dirty because 1, it's a cheap and dirty production, and also it's a cheap and dirty setting for the story, so it all kind of fits. But I always remember it as being a more, I don't want to say inept, but like a more slapdash production than it is. Even though I've seen it so many times, my brain always is surprised every time I watch it how cinematic it is, how well shot it is, how smart the use of camera movement is in it. And then, you know, then a month will go by, and then like a year will go by, and that will just leave my brain. And then I'll watch Texas Chainsaw again. And I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot. But I mean, the one thing that I really took from it this time was how much, I don't know, I don't think there's an underlying theme, but there seems to be, I'm very aware of the character's juxtaposition to environment in a way that in any other movie where there's like a person walking through a city, I don't really think about them in the city, but there's a lot of, like, Franklin comes out of the car to pee in a bush, and the camera passes along the bush, and I'm very aware of like his relationship in distance to like bushes and grass. I'm very aware of like Pam. Is it Pam? Pam walking up to the house and like the house is looming over her.
Yep.
Her, you know, I'm very aware of, you know, there's another time where like they let Franklin out of the van and the camera just sort of moves, and again, it's constantly contrasting the grass in the foreground, the van in the background. I think it's when Jerry's out looking for Pam, the sense of the trees and the like. There's a lot of really smart, and maybe it's just because they have a great environment to work with.
Mm-hmm.
But like when Sally is getting chased through the woods, there's a considerable smart use of foreground, background, trees, shifting focus between being chased and I don't know why I always forget that. I mean, there's a reason why Tobe Hooper made such a big mark in this movie and went on to, you know, you could see why Hollywood's like, hey, come on down.
Right.
Look at what you did with X amount of money. But yeah, it's so, but because of all those things that I'm describing, and I say this with like the highest, like this movie feels alive in a way that even other movies that are quote unquote cinematic and exciting, I'm still aware that they're a production, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Some of my favorite movies, you know, 2001 or Goodfellas, you are very aware of like the technique that's being involved, and that's great. You can go on an emotional journey, you can go on a psychological journey, and still be aware of technique. Texas Chainsaw is one of the few movies where like I'm not really aware that I'm watching a production. It has a freshness, it has a life to it that is jumping off the screen and really pulling me in to something that feels genuine. And sometimes I think when you read about or watch making ofs about like the production in the house and like, well, you know, we got some dead dogs and we put them in the house and all these bones are real and like they were gross, and we put real meat on the table, and then we were filming under hot lights for 27 hours and everything stunk and we were puking from it, and all that stink and all that dirt, that is part of the movie. And I don't think this movie would have worked if they're like, oh no, we had an air conditioned set and that meat was fake. That makes the movie to me. That makes it genuine. I can feel those feelings. I can feel the heat. I can smell the smells when I watch that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's why I have a love /terrified relationship
Because it's
with
so
it.
real.
Yeah, and actually real is the word I was gonna push, because I remember, because I'm a fan of this movie, I've seen a number of documentaries on it, and one of the ones I used to own on DVD, I need to get it, I think it's available on Blu-ray now. It was The Family Portrait, where they only speak to the cast members of and it's on Tubi. People can stream it if they want to. And I think it's even on YouTube. So look for it. Family Portrait Revisited. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. But Edwin Neal said in an interview that his opinion was that Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the only real horror movies that has ever been made. Talking about in terms of like its this is a word I use a lot, but its accessibility and its I feel like in a way it was like the Blair Witch Project of its time.
Absolutely.
Which is unfair to say, because Blair Witch Project is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre of its time. Because people went to the theater and thought it was, like a fool. I was young and stupid enough to believe I was watching an actual found footage, you know, oh my God, these poor kids. So stupid to say now. But there were people...
Sidebar, it's not too stupid to say now, because that was the early days of the internet. And when they made that website, people thought it was real. And
sure,
they made those actors sign like little contracts saying like, you can't take another job for X many months because we're going to sell it as real.
Right. But and so, I remember seeing that movie in the 90s. I remember feeling connected in a way to an experience because it's rare. But I remember hearing how people would react to Texas Chainsaw Massacre back in the 70s when they'd go see it, and how everybody assumed they sat down to watch a movie and they left feeling convinced they'd seen a documentary.
Yes.
Even Wes Craven left that movie going, oh my gosh, this movie must have been made by the dregs of humanity, by, you know, a group of sick motherfuckers, you know, and he was like, oh, people think the same thing about me. And I think he eventually did meet Tobe Hooper and was just kind of like, he's a nice guy. He's a businessman, always smoking a cigar.
Yeah. And brought to you by always drinking Dr. Pepper.
Yes, lovely.
Big DP fan.
We love you,
Well,
Toby. Sending love, sending love. Real. Oh, but I mean, I actually thought about it when I was rewatching the first movie today, about Gunnar Hansen's story about he took a date to see him play Leatherface in the movie, and he had some high ideas about where it was going to go. But she was oddly quiet in the car on the ride home, and when he walked her to her door, he thought he was going to get invited. He thought he was going to get a good night kiss, whatever. And she just said, "Well, thank you for a lovely evening," and slammed the door in his face and locked it. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd go that far, because I actually do have an odd, like that odd horror fan crush. It's not like a romantic, as it were, crush, but it's almost like an idolization of Gunnar Hansen. Really sad I never got to meet him, because he always, whenever I saw him in interviews, he was so fucking smart and so well read, and he was a writer himself. I still, now that I say it, I have to read some of his books. I've read some of Tobe Hooper's, though they're great. But just one of those individuals who like is this incredibly sensitive, insightful gentleman who can access things inside of himself and manifest them in a way that disturbs you, and then speak about them so eloquently. And that's kind of my jam. So
it's so funny that you have like a little, like a pseudo crush on him, but also who he plays is like the complete opposite of a crush for you.
Oh God, yeah. No, there's no even a crush adjacent on Leatherface. I think that's where the crush comes from, because he did it.
A line. Let's say hypothetically, "Hey Eddie, you know, come on over. I'm going to read you some of like my poems." And you're like, "Oh, cool." But then midway through, he's like,
"No,"
you'd be like, "No,
no." I would die, but anybody could do that. That's the thing. Anybody could do that, and I'd be like, "I'm leaving. I'm going," and I'd be laughing hysterically, a la Sally Hardesty leaving the house.
Yeah,
and just either, hopefully, I don't have to take the bus home. Hopefully, I can just get in my car.
It's been really impressive over the years watching so many people from this movie die off, to the point now where I look at it and I go, "Oh, I'm never going to see you at a convention. Oh, I'm never going to see you at a convention. Like, I'm not going to see anybody from this fucking movie at a convention anymore. Like, it sucks." And I feel like, how can all these people have died? It's not that. And then I also thought about, well, 73, 74. Wait a minute, 2012? Like, do you realize like in 3 years, this movie is going to be 50 years old?
Oh my God, I didn't think about that.
50.
Because this is a thing.
It doesn't feel like, when I think of a 50-year-old movie, it doesn't have this vitality to it.
No. Well, also, that's the thing, because I remember the first time I saw it was maybe 20 years ago or so, maybe, about 20 years ago. And I remember it was on either IFC or Bravo. I think it was IFC, because there were no commercials, and I don't think IFC had commercials then. I don't know if it does now, but
it totally does.
Okay, then it was the olden days. Bravo used to not have commercials. Imagine that. The only hit show it had going for it was Inside the Actors Studio. Anyway, tangent. So I'm watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, just kind of thing like, oh, it's probably going to be like a Friday the 13th or something like that. Like, you know, it's got an incredibly sensational title. So I'm not expecting like art. I'm expecting a kill count, you know? So I'm sitting there and I'm watching it in the afternoon too. Something about watching it during the day, not fun for the first time for me, because so much of it happens during the day. So then when night started to fall, by the time the movie was over, it was dark outside and I was really uncomfortable. But I just remember the whole opening sequence, even with the hitchhiker and everything, things weren't really registering with me. I wasn't terrified. I wasn't even scared. I was just kind of like, is this it? I thought Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where's the, you know, like I thought that's all it was. And then Kirk walks into that house.
So good.
And then and everything. And then you see that form which is like, especially watching it like during the day, like there was a glare on the TV, so I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
entirely see. So I'm like looking in a way that I never will ever again, but like, you know, kind of like squinting, like, where's he going? And then when I saw, it was like the stuff of nightmares. It was so silent. There wasn't a big dramatic sting. There was just the mallet he hits, the leg shake.
The leg shake.
Fuck me up. And then finally he pulls him and slams that iconic metal door. And then you get the dramatic sting. Yeah. And I'm just like, the movie has begun and I'm terrified. And I didn't relax for the rest of the movie. And it wasn't the first time, and I kind of have fun with parts of it now, but it still bothers me. But I remember after the first time, it was not fun. After it was over, I felt like I needed a shower for my insides and like I wasn't going to sleep that night. And I can't remember if I did. I might have passed out from exhaustion after a while, but it really, really bothered me. And because it did, I became fascinated and obsessed. And that's when I just started tracking down as much information as I could, you know.
I didn't have the same kind of emotional reaction you did, but I don't feel things the same way you do. However, I more just get groove on it as cinema. You know, you weren't going in expecting art. And they talked about like they weren't expecting this movie to have a legacy when they're making it, but I don't think they realized they're making art, but they absolutely are making art. But my first time, yeah, because I saw it probably around the same time maybe you did. I saw it in my very early 20s, you know, almost 20 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. I'd already seen Blair Witch, and one of my first thoughts when the movie ended was, I'm like, oh my God, like Blair Witch is totally the Texas Chainsaw. Low budget, felt real. People believed it was real. It had a big, you know, kind of small snowball effect on the public. But I also wasn't prepared for a lot of it. I kind of had the same, I just remember watching like the scene in the van, like not knowing where this was going, but genuinely being, you know, what the fuck is going on with this hitchhiker? But like you, it was, once we get to the house, it's like a game changer. But one little thing for me, I think it was the first DVD that they ever put out. And I've had it several times since then. But I forgot who put it out, but it was like that really basic, it just had like the poster brown and like a really basic white font on the spine. And it had some deleted scenes and like a commentary. But it wasn't the best transfer, and we've had several restorations since then. And I don't know if it was my TV settings, which at the time I thought were pretty good, but for some reason, when he fucking whacks Kirk, for some reason, like the very first time I saw it, and so much so that even afterwards, I carried this with me. I thought when he falls and hits the ground, and then you hear, like I must have blinked or I didn't really notice. It's so funny, how would I miss this? The sound of his feet shaking, the sound of his shoes hitting the floor. I thought that was Leatherface. So I heard the noise, but you see that wide shot of the hallway with Leatherface leaning over him and I thought he was like doing a fucking happy dance, which to me was like so disturbing. It's already disturbing because Kirk's legs are kicking, but I remember watching it the second time going, oh, he's not doing a fucking happy dance, you idiot. That's Kirk's legs. But I remember like those squeals that he's making and like how elated he is that like he's doing a little shuffle, and it's not even like a real shuffle. It's an overexcited attempt at a shuffle. It's happy feet, just like stompy stop stop, clompy clomp clomp. I whacked a guy.
Oh my God! Yeah.
There's always that twinge of like, oh, I miss when I thought Leatherface just did a happy dance.
I mean, yeah, I get that. It's surreal for sure. It's nightmarish. It's nightmare logic. Like, yeah, that's the stuff nightmares are made of.
The stuff that really struck me the first time was especially seeing the inside of the house, seeing the bone furniture, the feathers on the ground, and just that lingering Leatherface, you know, like just that tight little push on his face, kind of like licking his chops, and you know, I mean, it's a hell of a performance. all
Oh
things
God.
considered for a man in a mask, there is a lot going on in those eyes, and in that there's a lot of mouth and eye acting, and it's sad and interesting that every sequel, even though he never came back for the sequel, every sequel attempted to get him back. Which, like, I get why you would do that. Like, I get why Tobe
Mhm.
Hooper tried to get him for the second one.
Mhm.
And in each case, it comes down to money, which is what sucks. Um,
Yeah.
but even the third one, which is so different, they're like, well, we got to try to get him back. It's like, all right, well, it's
Yeah.
always like, we're going to pay you nothing. He's like, no, how about you pay me this? And then they go, well, and at least with the, the third one, they were really gracious to be like, well, we'll go talk to producers and we'll get back to you. And the producers were like,
Right.
no. And they're like, sorry. And then he's like, well, sorry. And even
Yeah.
with the fourth one, and in a weird way, I'm glad. I'm sad he didn't come back for any of them,
Mhm.
but I'm also glad because each movie's Leatherface is so different. They're all different
Yeah.
Leatherfaces. And not just because of the performances, but the movies around them. They're so different
Yeah.
that I don't know if I'd want to see him going in these different. I'd rather just sort of see him do this and let the next guy do that and let the next
Yeah.
guy do that.
I wouldn't have wanted to see him like maybe do just one with any of them. Like it would have, because then you start to get an appetite for, like, seeing his progression from like A to B if he had done two, and then you don't get him in 3 and 4, and it's like, but then if you don't get him for 2 and you get him for 3, it's just kind of like, I mean, those movies will get there, but I mean, like, those movies have their own things.
They do.
I mean,
and in a weird way,
this is the most incongruous, inconsistent timeline, probably and not even timeline, but basic facts of like what a Texas Chainsaw movie is consisted of.
I mean, so like the Chucky movies, it's great because they're all written by one guy.
Yeah.
And we have that's probably the most shining example of perfect continuity.
Mm-hmm.
And then even to the degree that, Nightmare on Elm Street, like, sure, 2 doesn't really fit, sure, 6 doesn't really fit, but you've got like a general narrative of like,
yes,
1, 3, 4, 5, like it fits. There's a way that like Freddy versus Jason kind of fits after those.
Sure.
This though, for as far as being a franchise or a series, is a very, I would call it mismanaged if there was a consistent management, but the whole thing is that there isn't. It's just, New Line got the rights to do it, so we're going to make 3, and then we're doing this independent production that Columbia TriStar is going to distribute, and then New Line got it again, but then Lionsgate, with Millennium Films, and it's a terrible continuity for a franchise, which also makes it hilariously fun for me to keep up with, and more importantly, try to make fit. Like, actually, I mean, we'll get there with the
we can try.
But
go ahead. You go. Okay, no, because also there was one thing that I forgot to mention, just in terms of your question about like what terrifies me about Leatherface, and it really applies, I think, only in this movie. We'll get there, but it's the Ed Gein of it all, and it's not, because I love telling newbies who don't understand. They're like, I heard it was based on a true story, and I'm like, not really. Like, but he really existed, and I'm like, well, not like that. Like it, and basically what Tobe Hooper wanted to create was, a movie about a family of Ed Geins, like 3 brothers. They're all Ed Geins, but they're all like different kind of like versions of it. But they're cannibals and grave robbers, and one of them likes to wear flesh because Ed Gein likes to. But the thing is, I think that's the aspect that there's a lot of things about that man that disturb me, but fascinate me in that way that you have to be, I don't know, that makes you uncomfortable. You're just like, why am I so interested in this guy? But I am, and yet again, it's like with Leatherface, I can feel sympathy for the character, like on paper. Like, I mean, he seems like he has a tragic life, terrible, just daily practice. I don't envy anything about the way he conducts himself, or the way he's treated, or the way he believes what he perceives life to be, or anything like that. But I think it's that whole the traces of Ed Gein, the influences pouring in. There's enough there that I'm just kind of like uncomfortable. That makes me uncomfortable too. Even with some question marks, which we can get into, but I want you to say whatever you have to say.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned like the sympathy or the tragedy of him, because yeah, the abuse that he takes.
Yeah.
It's interesting to me that it's a little beat, but it's after, it's after Pam. It's like Drayton's come home. He's bringing home Sally,
Mm-hmm.
and hang on, are you still there?
I'm here.
I accidentally minimized things. Hey, there we go. Anyway, he's very upset at Leatherface and like, oh, this one got away and this and the door and blah, god damn. And it not only is, his posture like, but the fact that like Leatherface calms him down that like, no, I got everyone. Like, no one got away. Like, look here, like everything's like we got everybody back. Like you got Sally and this girl's in the freezer, everything's fine. And Drayton understands him. Like he's like, oh, okay. Like, so no one got away. But look what you did to the door, you idiot. I'm like, see, like that's the instance where I'm like, oh, you're not just mad, like you're an abuser. Like,
yeah.
This sort of thing, it doesn't really matter what you're mad at him for. You need to be mad at him for something. It feels like
you're
Drayton
kind of a sadist.
Yes, and you need to keep Leatherface in this space because that's where you want him to be. And that was the first time that like well, actually no, because I already disliked Drayton before that. But that was the first time I was really like I already know that you're selling human meat in your gas station, but that was the moment where I'm like, you bastard. Now you're a monster.
All right. Not when he was, hitting the hitchhiker out in the headlights or anything like that.
Well, no, yeah, no. The first time I really is when Sally comes into the gas station and he comes in with that fucking sack and starts whacking her with the broom, and that is just a small part of the bigger thing that really I don't want to say gets to me. I have a weird thing with Texas Chainsaw. When I'm watching it, I am appreciating it as art. I'm very aware of the vitality of what I'm watching.
Yeah.
I'm never really scared by it. It's a weird thing, but when I stop and think about it, then I get scared by it. But I don't ever. You ever have like a movie that like, yeah, it's funny, but it's funnier when you and your buddies quote it, and you're laughing about it more than when you actually just sit down and watch it. And Texas Chainsaw like bothers me more when I just stop and think about it.
Yeah, I mean, well, you know me. We've talked enough horror for you to know that that's my natural inclination is to just speculate. What is that life like? What is that?
Right.
What is it like to be inside that? And that's the most terrifying thing of all for me is the daily habits and what that must entail. And I don't like it. It's interesting though to hear you. It's interesting though that you hated Drayton at that moment with the broom and everything like that, because actually what made me hate him, even if he wasn't in league with the family and everything, the thing that would have made me hate him is he leaves the fucking door open.
I know.
She's sitting there and I'm like, I would have been like,
right?
I wouldn't have.
But I also wouldn't have been able to get up to close the door.
No.
My thing is if he had been a true person, if you are, and not in on it, you would never have left that door open. And that's instantly like makes me kind of upset with him. But no, what got me, it's one of the few times where I allow myself to feel feelings in the moment and not think about it after. It's God bless that guy's face. It's that smile on his face when he's fucking how amused he is.
Yeah.
As he's hitting her with the broom, and he's got that grin in those teeth and his eyes light up the way he's just enjoying it. And that's what gets me and that's like the whole dinner scene for me. And to me, ultimately what the whole movie is that gets me, that bothers me, that when I stop to allow myself, not just Leatherface, I'll get to Leatherface in a moment. The idea that you scream, you ask, please let me go, or I want to get out of here, and the response is laughter.
Yeah. And
there have been plenty of movies that came out after this where, the villain, the monster will laugh. But there's something about, this isn't, when you are in a bad dream and you're screaming to wake up or something and Freddy's laughing at you, it's purely maniacal, but I feel like he's very lucid
Mhm,
and he's laughing because I'm just an asshole.
mhm.
This is they're not all there. So you can't reason with them. You can't beg to them. You can't do anything because they're not gonna really hear it.
No,
And
oh
even
God,
when they
no.
hear it, it's just gonna inspire laughter. There is
Yeah.
definitely a treatment the way they at that honestly at that point I don't think they're viewing Sally or any of their victims as human. It
I
is a cute thing.
know.
It is oh look that animal is getting up on its hind legs, how amusing.
Mhm,
But that delight, that condescension,
mhm,
where you can't do anything, you can't speak your way out of it, and the fact that they won't even have it, that they won't even hear it, really bothers me. And also separately, the fact that Leatherface um, isn't all there, and
mm,
specifically, and I don't think a lot of his victims know this, but we the viewers know that, like, based on what he's got going on here, a lot of what he's doing is reactionary. It is self-defense, even if he doesn't even realize I am the offense. He
mhm,
is threatened and he's
yeah,
reacting to a threat. Even if the threat is
mhm,
just like a woman screaming, it's like, oh no, and then and that giant beast becomes the threat. But I will also say, since we're on the subject, so many movies have had the maniacal people laughing at you, but this is,
mhm,
I don't know if it's the first. There's a lot about this movie that's the first, but this is definitely the best.
hmm.
I'm very aware in a lot of other movies when, let me go, and then the person's like, hey, let me go, and they make
Right,
fun of you.
right.
It's very rarely effective. Very rarely feels like a place of truth. It always feels like a choice. But these people get under my skin in a way it just doesn't work years, decades
Mhm,
on from now. And all the movies I've seen, this is the best version of the taunting, unreasonable, unrational, mean spirited, but not totally mean because they're also just not there. And just like, that's a nightmare to me.
yeah,
Being in
um,
that dinner scene, if I was in that room, is a goddamn nightmare.
yeah. It feels like it's interesting that they shot what was it, 20 or 32 hours straight, I believe. It was well over 24. I
There's
remember
one
that.
documentary that one guy goes 26, one guy goes 27. They're like, he'll probably tell you it was 25. And then they're like 32, 27. But yeah,
Yeah, whatever
over
it was. It was
24 hours.
it was over 24 hours for sure. And the interesting thing again about the realism is that I don't know how long that sequence is. It feels interminable.
Oh, yeah.
It
It feels like it's
feel
all night long.
and I mean, because literally when she breaks through the window like it's
The
daylight,
sun is coming up. Yeah.
exactly. And yet, for the first time today, while I was watching it, I don't know why. Maybe because I was taking notes and I don't usually take notes. I'm too busy being immersed in the movie. But this time I had like a distraction. So for the first time she broke out and I was just kind of like, how long is that scene actually? It doesn't feel like it usually does feel all like 24 hours. Like she's been there. Like that might not even be the next morning. That could even be like the morning after
Oh,
the next, like who knows how long she's out.
no,
But
but it's it's
anyway,
it's not. Yeah.
no, I don't believe it is. But I mean,
Be,
but it
be,
feels long. It feels like
well,
never ending. It feels almost like there's a strange, like that you can't put a label on it, mania that she experiences once she's free from the house. That and
yeah, the
she's
way
just
she looks.
looking around. Part of it is like almost it's daylight. I never thought this would happen again. And I'm out. I
Yep.
never thought that would happen. And anyway, but I don't want to jump to the end just yet, because you mentioned the whole nightmare scenario, and I do concur. But what I just wanted to say on top of it is, always felt like that was the precursor. That particularly, she wakes up, perceives things on the table, finally sees Grandpa, immediately just peels out a scream, and they start howling with her. Before they start laughing, it's all like, oh,
Yeah.
and everything, and it's just chaos. And more than ever this past time, I felt like that was the precursor to the grandpa scene. Where, I mean, with the grandpa sucking her blood and doing the little goo goo gaga baby physicality. Well, because he's feeding off of her life force, her blood. And I feel like that's what they've been doing this entire time, just draining the life, the hope, the strength, the what have you, just the will to live.
Oh yeah, they're feeding
out
of
Scream. Her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's terrifying too. I think that's why that particular device maybe works a little bit more often in movies, where something feeds on your fear, and the more afraid you are, the stronger it gets. Who isn't going to be scared of that? But I also, a big part of Marilyn Burns' performance, I think the thing that,
which, by the way,
yeah, oh Jesus Christ, because she's the one who had to go through it, like, I mean, in the movie and behind the scenes. I mean, it was no, well, if people watching don't know, I don't know why you wouldn't, but find out. Like, we're not going to talk about all of it tonight because there's too much.
No,
but it was hell. It was hell. It was hell for everybody,
that
but
whole
it was
production,
particularly hell for her. But I think the thing that gets me the most, that breaks my heart for her, is when,
say what I think you're going to say,
when she tells them, I'll do anything you want, and then immediately starts crying because she realizes what she's just done, which is, and I think that this is just subtext, and maybe it's just my perception of what she's doing, but I feel like she's offering herself, sexually, period, not gonna go into it, to them, and whatever they want, like, I'll do whatever you want, but and something about this sweet, sunny girl who just thought she was, revisiting her grandmother's home that she had slept once in a child, like all of that, all the seeds they plant for that, with her like reminiscing about the wallpaper and things like that, it all comes back to me then, because I feel like I'm watching this poor, desperate young woman who is still be coherent enough to feel the agony of even imagining what's awaiting her, whether they accept or not. There is no win here, and that's what breaks my heart. What did you think I was going to say?
No, I thought you were going to say the tragedy of like how the production went on, and then she was like, I'm done, like, I'm fucking done, it's my last day, yay, yay, yay. And then she went home, and then she got the call saying, like, we need to reshoot the truck thing. She's like, wait, what? Like, like, we didn't get it, like, whatever happened with the film, like, we need you to come back for a day and shoot. Like, after all that shit, like, so that her maniacal scream is coming from a place of like, I have to fucking come back and do this again. I mean,
yeah, that I think I'm too consumed by the movie at that point to like really be that outside of it with Marilyn.
Well,
Burns. Fortunately and unfortunately. But yeah, no, I get that too. My God.
No, I want to just take a moment. I'm not going to do this for every movie and be like, let's take a moment and praise everyone. But like, really quick, I don't think this movie gets enough credit for how great the acting is. Because there are so many movies that have like cheesy acting. When you look at some of the older movies, even older movies that I really like, I can kind of point out some of the limitations of acting choices, whatever. But there is something really smart about the cast is all playing it really straight. They aren't playing it like a low budget cheese fest. And I know that was kind of the intent of like Tobe Hooper saying, I'm gonna make this movie like we have. Look, we're not. Everyone's talking about you know the history of horror. You come out of the 50s and 60s. You had aliens. You had giant bugs. You had, and then Texas Chainsaw comes along shortly after Night of the Living Dead kind of rewrote things with zombies. And then this comes along too, where like it isn't a boogeyman, it isn't like a crazy monster, it isn't a giant ant. Um, and I know Tobe Hooper's like, no, like when you tell people, I'm gonna make a horror movie, they go, okay, and he's like, no, I'm gonna make a fucking horror movie. And the fact that he got this cast to, I mean, the closest, none of it's cartoony, but like Franklin is a lot in the way that some people you meet in life are. They're fucking a lot. Same thing with the Hitchhiker, but the Hitchhiker to me is honestly, the Hitchhiker is to me just as scary as fucking Leatherface. I mean that.
Yeah.
But what's great is when he is in the van and he's like got the knife. Fucking Jerry. Like he does that performance, and I'm sure we've all had this experience. Lord knows I have. When like what are you gonna do with that knife? Like I'm not gonna be good until you put the knife down. Now, I don't want to disturb you, so I need to keep smiling, but I'm scared. But I don't want to show that I'm scared, so I'm gonna kind of pretend to be cool. But I could tell that you're not totally cool. Like it is. He is so great in the van scene. And if anyone out there is watching this, they don't know what I'm talking about, go back and watch the van scene and just watch Jerry trying to
you're talking about Kirk. Jerry's driving.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Jerry is. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Kirk. Keep your eye
William
on Kirk.
Vale. Yeah,
he's so good in that scene.
Yeah, he is.
He is brilliant in that scene. But also, I know we learn his name is Nubbins later, but for the intents of this video, hit the Hitchhiker. I mean, that is to me a horror performance for the ages. Asking for the photo and just that level of and that whole family to me, it's that sense of you ever been maybe like around like a violent drunk and like you need like and until they and it's like
yes.
You're a little drunk and like okay I don't want to agitate you.
No.
But like I'm trying to talk you down, but like without sounding. But if I condescend to you too much, you're gonna freak out. So like, there's this weird balance.
I'm walking a tightrope. Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel about like being in a room with any of the Sawyers in this movie. So yeah, but of all the people, Marilyn Burns. I very rarely do I watch a horror movie where I actually 100% believe that character is experiencing fear and not just this is the part where I have to run and scream. And maybe I have a good scream, maybe I've got a good sense of momentum, but like she's 100% a fully realized person. And then when she's first getting chased through the woods after Franklin gets killed, that is, to me, that just goes beyond acting. Like that is terror incarnate in her scream and in her face. It's so hard, I feel like, as an actor to just run and scream and to really take after take after take and throughout the span of minutes, and it eventually just starts to sound like a scream. But that she maintains a level of terror for minutes over various takes and various shots, and it is pure. So much so that when we get to the gas station, and you know that this is the brilliant thing about acting is that, you know, and then cut, and then you go home for the day and whatever, and then you get the next day, and we're going to shoot another day or 2 days later, whatever the fuck, we're shooting the gas station scene, and you can sometimes tell when it's not the same momentum, but it is the same momentum, and it is a whole new level of that recovery, that fear. Where every little, like the space you're in, you can't trust it, and every little noise, and you start thinking, but what if? Please don't go outside. She's brilliant then. So you get to the point where when she jumps out the fucking window and gets in the truck, I don't even recognize Sally anymore. I know it's the same actress.
Yeah.
But Sally has gone on such a journey that in truth you wouldn't recognize her. But the fact that she's an actress makes me not recognize her is brilliant. And the whole dinner scene, it's a shame. Like I'm not going to say that she should win like an Academy Award because I don't want to give too much credit to awarding things. Yeah, but like that is, I don't know how you don't just throw awards at that. It is the purest the best version I've seen of terror. And and all the cliches are there, right? The close-ups
Yeah.
on the eye and the cutting back to the maniacal family, but she is in a zone that I
Mm,
don't see many actors get to.
yeah.
And that's magic
Mhm.
caught on camera. And that's, to me, one of the things that makes this movie work more than anything is her.
Yeah, I think especially one of the things I've always appreciated about Sally as a final girl, and I think I've criticized other movies for this, but if they had what this movie had, maybe I'd feel differently. But there's something about the fact that she's almost not introduced in the movie. Uh, like everybody else seems to be much more talkative in the van.
Oh
We've
yeah,
got
Pam's reading
Pam,
horoscopes.
exactly,
Yeah.
and oh god, Franklin's
Franklin's being
taking up a
fucking Franklin.
lot of space. Yeah. Um, he seems to be kind of like the main focus. Actually, the camera keeps zooming in on him, and like him, like he'll turn his face and then he'll turn into a close-up or something like that. So um she's really kind of in the background until she gets to that house, starts point, like I talked about the wallpaper, but even just that, almost it feels improvisational, maybe even like I guess what some people might call like a blooper or a mistake, where they were improvising, but it was so charming, where she's just like, yeah, I stayed here when I was 8 years old when my grandmother died. And he's just like, oh really? And Jerry asks her, oh really, what happened to her? And she's like, what happened to my grandmother? He's like, yeah, oh, she died, right? And they'll just start laughing. And and I don't know, there's something about that exchange. Like on one hand, like if I were just watching it isolated, I'd wonder, should it go in the movie, because it looks like two actors who just kind of tripped up. But it's so, again, so charming and so endearing. It makes, and something about like the everything about her, like, I mean, casting isn't just about acting ability either. It is about type, unfortunately sometimes, but something about like the lilt in her voice. It bespeaks this idealism. It bespeaks kind of like this. Oh, because there's something else I noticed this time that if I remembered it, if I noticed it before, I don't remember. When they get to the cemetery and they find out, like the drunk guy's there laying on his
Oh
on his
yeah.
back, saying all the weird things. But one man grabs her by the arm, really, really tall, and he asks Jerry, "You don't mind if I take your girl for a walk over here? I just want to show her where her relatives are." And doesn't wait for an answer and just pulls her along, and she just kind of goes. She's just kind of like, okay, whatever. I suppose I can trust him. And my 2021 visor goes, ha ha,
Right.
and like, fuck, don't go with him. Uh, but and then I noticed in the next shot, like the reason why it never bothered me, I guess, is because immediately he lets go of her arm and they're just two people walking and he's pointing out and she's just walking along, and then she comes back almost immediately and knows, just to tell them it didn't look like they dug up the grave, he was fine or whatever. But I mean, she starts off such an incredibly passive character and silent character. So to become the scream, the dominating
Right.
scream in a climactic sequence that is all about screaming, and also for her to become the central focus, like all of a sudden the camera is finding every
Mhm.
angle of her eyeball, her face, her teeth, her lips, her hair, her eyelashes, like everything. Um, 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 there's something about that feels magical and singular that I wouldn't advise anybody else to attempt in another horror movie, because I feel like too many
Right.
times I've seen it not work.
Right.
But
Well,
but it works for me with her
and
and with the
and
movie.
and that performance that you're talking about in that scene, like all those close-ups and those quick cuts,
Hmm.
that isn't a style. Like these are choices that they're making in
Yeah,
1973.
yeah,
But then that becomes the style later, and it becomes a very hollow thing to, like, now we cut to close-ups of this and her eye and her scream. But I
yeah,
mean, there's so many things in this movie that, even just the idea of having it, again, feel not like a production, but feel real. The fact that they're out in the middle of nowhere and that we're going to really focus on the terror. So much of this is like very fresh. For it felt like for the first time this was being done for audiences.
Yeah.
And I think one of them
Um,
is the focus on the terror and the way
yeah.
they all these very specific editing choices that
Hmm.
it isn't a style yet. This made it the
Yeah.
style.
Hmm.
And also, fun fact, and I always remind this to random people because Texas Chainsaw is my number 5 favorite horror movie of all time. And when that comes up and normies go, "Oh, Texas Chainsaw," oh, and they always mention either how bloody, how gory it is, and
Jesus.
I always get to go, "Well,
No.
actually, have
No.
you seen Texas Chainsaw?" No, or a long time ago. I go, "Yeah, it's not that gory. You remember
Yeah.
it being that gory." But
Yeah.
like he puts her on the hook, and you know what? You don't see a hook go into her, and you don't see any
Nope.
blood come out. It doesn't come out the other end. You don't
Mm-mm.
really see anything. Franklin, you never see the chainsaw. You just see blood splatter onto
Oh yeah.
Leatherface's mask. You don't
Hmm.
see the chainsaw go in.
No.
You see, Kurt get hit at the end of a hallway, and
Uh-huh.
it's there's not I mean there's creepy shit all over the house. There's a lot of skeletons,
Hmm.
chickens and stuff. But yeah, no, this is not a very. I'm it's just like this, and then this has been going on for decades, the Reservoir Dogs with the ear getting cut off. And I'm like, the camera moves away. You don't actually
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
the ear
Yeah.
get cut off. And like, you don't actually
Hmm.
see a hook
It
go.
was shot in an effective way that makes
Absolutely.
you where you
Well,
feel the
the
impact of it,
reaction,
but you don't have
Jesus,
to. Exactly. Oh my God. Well, I mean, like you were talking
Kurt.
about with Pam and her scream, I can't even do it justice. But that, and
Yeah.
then and I think it's also the fact that I remember they had the meat hook turned the other way, and there was something for another kind of hook that wasn't sharp at the end, and she had a harness on with a loop behind it, and the loop was supposed to catch on it, so you get that moment that it's like a split second where he drops her on it. It's right before they
Yep.
cut to the close up of the infamous but so you see that boom, and
Hmm.
that I winced today, and I knew it
Yeah.
was coming. I've seen this moment hundreds of times, and I still go, and then I think probably when Jerry does go looking for the two of them, and he gets into that room and she's missing, but we have in the foreground that hook with like blood that's been like swiped off, so she's been lifted. That is the hook.
Yep.
She's been lifted off of it and she's been put somewhere. Fuck me. Fuck me. No.
Yeah, I always feel bad for her because she ends up in the freezer and she seems like she could survive this, but then we never. She freeze to death. I don't know. Who knows?
I don't
But
know
she,
either.
she was a dangling.
Suffocate, just bleed
Um,
out. I mean, there's any number of things.
I am ready to move on to 2 soon, but I will say one thing, and you can tell me if you've got more stuff. But I will never watch this movie for the first time was a great joy, and but one of the things that really shocked me the first time I saw it that I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Just because I've never really seen it in movies before, or very rarely do I see this. But well, first of all, I love that the trucker, and like when he sees Leatherface, he's like, "Oh fuck this!" Like I love that
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
That trucker is great.
The
Um,
driver of the Black Maria. Yeah.
yeah, and I love that when he helps her in,
Yes.
just a little thing, but I
Yeah.
love that in that moment he's sharp enough to still care for her. No, what's great is knocks the chainsaw. Leatherface falls down, drops the chainsaw on his leg, and
Hmm.
it's one of the few times where it didn't feel like I was looking at a fake leg with like an effect. It looks like they bought meat and
Yeah.
stuffed it because when he cuts, it cuts the heat and the grind of it, it's splitting meat through his leg. And it's the only time where I'm like, oh my God, that
Yeah.
really looked like it cut a leg.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Gunnar Hansen spoke about that. It was, I can't remember if it was raw chicken or if it was a steak, because raw chicken almost feels like it would be too small, but maybe they got a giant chicken breast. I don't know. But it was meat. There was a blood pack, either on top or underneath. I can't remember. And a metal like sheath or whatever for him to wear underneath it so it couldn't cut through to him. But the thing is, he talked about how when he dropped the saw, like they did a few takes with the saw with the teeth off, and they're like, "You got the choreography, yeah." Put the teeth on. He's already cut through it. It was great. And this was the shot where he goes for it. The reason he goes for it and pulls the saw away to like grab his, and I think that's real too. in a way, because even though the metal protected him, it heated up. So it started to burn his leg. So he's really going, ah, and going like, ow, 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 ow. And there's something about the reflexivity of that, of that grab. Again, it's not it doesn't feel like a performance. I wouldn't show it and go like, look at this great performance. It's just something that you get while you're watching it. It's just one more wonderful little detail that just feeds the reality of the moment in a chaotic
smoke comes out
sequence.
of it, right?
Yeah, I think so.
A little bit of like burning, so like that's believable.
Yeah. I guess the only thing I'll have left to say, because I can honestly talk about this movie all night, but but one thing that I'd like to bring up that I don't hear a lot of people talk about that creeped me out from the get-go and hasn't stopped for me with this movie anyway. Okay. Being interested in Ed Gein's life and knowing that he was fascinated by voodoo and black magic and what's the word I'm looking for? Bringing people back to life, like rejuvenation of life, that kind of thing. Yes, Des, my cat's mewing. But there was an element that I felt in this movie. Wasn't supernatural. It was almost just like, because it doesn't get alluded to with any kind of lines or anything like that, it's almost this like unspoken thing. It's always been more creepy to me because of that. Because when Sally first runs up the stairs, Grandpa looks dead. He's sitting there with Grandma. She's dead. They carry Grandpa down the stairs and he's laying there and he doesn't look like an alive person. And they're feeding him blood. Mm-hmm. And even back with the hitchhiker on the car, putting like an emblem on it, like it looked like something. It didn't look like he was just going, it looks like I'm creating a numeral or some kind of lettering to curse you. And I don't think this movie is about curses. I think this movie is just about the unknown. And there's some element of it that I always wondered, was Tobe Hooper, and I've never heard him speak to it either. I think the way it was the way it was described to John Dugan, who played Grandpa, was that he was a man who was so old he had cycled back to like a babyhood. Like he was he had a word for it.
Because he's like 120 something years old, like
something like that, and but like so old that he's basically stopped aging internally and just regressed into being a toddler, not even a toddler, a baby again, like an infant. And that makes sense. But the thing is, because he looked, the first time I saw it especially, and you can never really shake your first time if it has impact, I thought they were feeding him her blood to keep him alive, because that's what, I don't know if it was voodoo or whatever, whatever you want to call it, whatever kind of mystical thing they were doing. They had found some way to reanimate people, and it was through sacrificing people, which was great because they're cannibals anyway, but it's almost like they had unlocked something that allowed them to go on living. And I didn't want like the franchise to ever be about that, because the key thing about it is that it's real. But the thing is, that's why I like it doesn't get spoken about. They're not like, he died in whatever in 1901, but they just talk about how he was the greatest killer and how, but I mean he can't move, and there's something about the way he looked that always just felt zombie-like to me, and or mummified. And so yeah, that was always an element that like I was just kind of like, I'm uncomfortable, and I don't I don't like it. and there's traces in other movies that make me feel like I'm not crazy. We'll get there.
It definitely, it always felt like a violation. I mean, the whole thing is, a horror is a nightmare escape. But when they force her and like Grandpa's like sucking on, like that to me feels like another step. It feels like a violation within the confines of this terror. I will never forget the first time I saw this movie, though, for that, because I remember distinctly being like, okay, God, the hitchhiker, oh my God, he's part of this family, and now we're having this creepy dinner. And like, wow, we're bringing Grandpa down. It's so fucked up. We're going to have this dinner with this corpse at the table. And the moment like he showed signs of life, I was like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
is that? How
Yeah.
weird. That's creepy as shit. Oh my God.
Mhm.
Oh my God.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've never flat out, you're right. No one really talks about it. I've never given over to the idea like, oh, it's like a proto form of vampirism. But
Right, right.
but I
And I
always allowed
wouldn't call
myself,
it that, no.
right. But I have from time to time just wondered, like, not wondered, but like always presumed that this, him and the blood is what started the family down the path of like of his kin and their kin
Mhm.
eating people. Like it's him. Like what they're
Right.
doing now is the start of it. Like, and he's just continuing, and this is what it's kind of evolved into.
Right. Oh,
Um,
embryonic. That was the word Tobe Hooper used to describe him as
mm,
an embryonic old man, which is
that works.
disturbing.
Yeah, because you go
Yeah.
upstairs that first time, and he's just the dead guy, and then they bring Grandpa downstairs. All right.
Sure. But I mean, the amount of like, I mean, there's the bone furniture, but then there's like the amount of feathers that are like, maybe that's just the trash room where they're just kind of like, well, I
Yeah.
don't know what to do with these bones yet,
Yeah. Fuck
but
it.
it
Yeah.
could also be something. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like there's, and the way they hang them, like in the other
Well,
house,
and
like,
Franklin's got the right idea.
yeah.
Like I still to this day think that Nubbins was just fuck you in your van. Here's some blood. Fuck you.
Mm.
But it is a question worth asking when you see the van. I 100% am with Franklin. I'm like, is that what the fuck is that? Is that like a mark? Is that because again,
Right.
I don't think it's a curse, but you could argue that it is a mark. They are the marked ones, you know. But there's nothing after the movie, the rest of the movie, to suggest that they have been marked. But it is creepy. But I still think it's just something worth thinking
Well,
about.
also
And
just
not,
like what whets my appetite for that kind of thing is just Pam talking about Saturn being in retrograde and reading
oh
off their
yeah,
horoscopes to them
their
and stuff like
horoscopes
that. And I'm
are,
just
yeah.
it's shitty, but so I mean it's laced in there. I don't feel like it's accidental, and I don't feel like Tobe Hooper was trying to uh not create some kind of old, I don't know, maybe old world superstition or just anything that makes you doubt yourself, and the fact that like, well, I'm master of my destiny and things like that don't happen to people like me, all of that. Like I think it's just kind of like wipes away absolutes, this movie. So
Yeah.
I don't mind allowing myself to at least wonder that,
Right.
like I said,
It
it
is,
doesn't, I'm not saying he's a reanimated corpse, it's voodoo and it's a curse they put on it. No, I don't think that, but I wonder what they believe.
right.
Like they're not in their right minds either. So I feel like, okay. And also, like I said, later on there's other things that figure in where I'm like, that's interesting.
I just respect that it's barely sprinkled in there within the text, but it's not the text of the movie. No one in the movie stops and wonders this really. And yet,
exactly,
when you, the viewer, kind of above the movie and observing it, you can wonder because it is there, but the movie isn't, really positing that question in
it's
a way
not
that,
zombies from Texas. Yeah.
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 And then two happened.
Oh boy.
An incredible, I didn't see this movie for a long, again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I used to be very much a snob when it came to franchises and sequels.
Yeah.
So I didn't see two until, although I did give two a shot far earlier than I gave a lot of other sequels.
Oh.
I think like I saw Texas Chainsaw when I was like 19 or 20. I think I saw part two when I was like 26, 27.
Okay.
And instantly was just like, I think the first thing that really struck me was Dennis Hopper. Like, there's a lot going on in the movie, but I became like, okay, like he's going shopping for chainsaws, and then he's got the holsters. I mean, my first thing that I would describe this movie is it's fun. It's a fun time.
Totally.
Much has been said, much has been written. We all know that like he wanted to make this a black comedy. It certainly is. But I mean, I think there is no greater single example in a movie full of examples Chop Top
Mhm.
is an example, but I think the greatest example of like, no, this movie is this kind of movie. We're here to have fun. No great example is Dennis Hopper with little chainsaw holsters. You know, like going in, like he's wearing little like quick draw chainsaws. Get the fuck out of here! This movie's awesome. In fact, I the fact that there's a movie
Mhm.
where Dennis Hopper has a sword fight with chainsaws against Leatherface,
Yeah.
and I didn't fucking dream it. I didn't make it up. It actually happened. That God bless this movie. It seems like the kind of thing I would have dreamed. And then, you know, like the next day you're like, remember that movie where, you know, like, you remember that movie where like Terry Hatcher and like Judd Nelson like punched a monkey, and you're like, wait, what? No, I just dreamed that. That's how, like, this sounds like it's something I dreamed.
Yeah, no, totally. It goes, I mean, here we use the word real for the first one. The second one is definitely surreal.
Yes.
Feels, it's got that incredible funhouse atmosphere.
Yep.
Before we ever go to that theme park, that abandoned, what was it called? I wrote it down.
Texas
The
Battle
Texas
Land?
Battle Land Museum. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny that you mentioned Dennis Hopper like straight away, because he's probably the last thing I think about when I think about this movie.
Yeah. Same
Only
here.
because,
But even though he's not the first thing I think of, I think he is one of the most interesting things about it. But I think of Stretch, I think of Chop Top, I think of that glorious set, you know.
Sure.
I think of the truck chase in the beginning. I think of a lot before we get to it.
No, sure. Only thing with Dennis Hopper, because there's not much for me to say, is I just remember being upset because I felt like, even though I love Dennis Hopper and I love seeing him in the movie, there's something about his character, about Lefty, just seeing him just kind of piss all over the movie. Like, just being a man taking up space. Like, going into the museum and sawing it down before you found Stretch, before you found the family.
Well, she fell down the
like,
hole,
how are you gonna get out? You know, or is this just like a one-way mission? Like, you want to die too, buried in the rubble with this family. Like, I'm so yeah. He there's a lot of things about him that, you know, just like that toxic masculinity thing that before it had a name to it, I remember thinking like you're lucky Stretch is like this willing to work with you and help you, and you know, like, this is actually who you want in your corner, and you're pushing her away. Fuck you. Like, the movie needs to happen, let her in. She's great, everything. And that's the thing, is like, yeah, Stretch is probably the first thing I think about, because she, for me, is to this franchise what Amy Steele is to Friday the 13th, in that I love the heroine I got the first movie. And then I get the second movie and I get a heroine I think I might not love more, but love for different reasons, because I feel like she's given maybe more agency, more just something about the situations they put her in and how she handles them and how the actress portrays them makes me happy, real, and excited, and want to watch the movie over and over and over again, and then disappointed that I don't get to watch her in subsequent films.
Yes.
Well, we'll get to it, but
right.
But you know what I'm going to say. But no, but something about, like, from the beginning, something as simple as just like watching her groove out to the music she's listening, and the fact that she's, you know, this DJ in this tiny like backwater zoo radio show or whatever, playing Boingo, you know. And then
best use of Boingo in a movie, by the way.
Oh my god, makes me
like,
so happy.
There is no better use of Boingo in a movie.
I just go whoop, 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 whenever I'm like I don't know, something about driving across a bridge, you know, at night with like those lights. I'm just kind of like, I don't want to, I get scared again, because this Leatherface, though more endearing, Still bothers me, particularly the way he's introduced. But I remember even just thinking, what an incredible progression for Leatherface as a character. Like here we knew him just as the man who like just swap faces, you know, to just kind of like be whoever the moment, whatever the moment demands, or whatever he feels the moment demands. Like, oh, well, I've spent, you know, the time putting everything away, cleaning up after everything, done with the butchering, so I have to clean. So now I'm the matron. Okay, I'm done with that. I want to look nice for dinner. I'm going to put on my pretty girl face, you know, like all that stuff. Going next level and full on leather body, you know, like with the black, I don't know, cloth, tarp, sheet, whatever you want to call it. And being
my brother.
his brother,
Yeah.
being his brother, and but with a chainsaw. And actually, the first time I saw it, and for me, I'm embarrassed to say, like maybe the first 4 times I saw the movie, I didn't know that's who that was until one time. Until finally, I was just kind of like, oh, pouch, just like, because also to my shame, I thought Bill Moseley, like the first 4 times I saw it, was supposed to be him.
Yeah, totally. I did the very first time I saw it, I thought that.
Yeah, and I thought like, oh my God, all that like reanimated, you know, life kind of thing. They're going full force with it, and that's what made. For some reason, he has a plate, and then you know later, obviously, I find out, oh, it's his brother, obviously a twin, and went off, was fighting in Vietnam while probably all of this, all the first movie was going on, and then came back with a plate in his head and went right back to, you know, old business as usual. Yeah.
It's in the movie. I remember the first time I saw it, I think I wasn't ignoring it, but I was, it was a bit of a casual watch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I maybe wasn't leaning into all the dialogue. So I missed the bits about like when I was in Nam and like I'm funding this and you know without getting hit in the head. I just remember seeing that plate. I'm like, oh, so Nubbins got run over by the truck.
Yeah.
And then they had to put a plate in his head to like, this is how he survived. This is what he looks like after getting run over by a truck.
I also thought I totally thought he was dead because pale beyond belief, hair like, you know, sparsely growing out of his scalp and everything like that. So I'm just kind of like, oh, they're leaning into it. And I'll just say it really quick. Because what backed it up for me then, and what I still am like, I still think there's a trace of it. Tobe Hooper wanted a trace of that in there. Is at the very end with Grandma, like she has her chainsaw taken away. The head is going, what the fuck, you know? And he's like, Grandma, no. And then he tells her he killed Grandma, and I'm just like, well, Grandma's dead. But she was moving. So voodoo. Anyway,
I just always think it was just, well, now we're just doing weird shit.
That could be true too, because Grandpa definitely looks alive to me in this one. But anyway.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, like I mean, old as fucking terrifying, but I don't like those.
Oh my God, that push in close up.
Oh,
so good.
The actor, perfect, pitch perfect,
so good.
Terrifying. Yeah. So much. Okay, there's so much to cover. But yeah, so I didn't know. Also, because Chop Top like mentions like me and my brother Bubba, and I'm just like Bubba, who's Bubba? Like, you know. And then I find out, oh, Bubba's Leatherface. All right. And that's the first time we're actually getting names for all of the family. The first time we know they're the Sawyers. First time we know Drayton Sawyer is the name of the cook, even though he was credited as the old man in the first one. He was just the old man. But anyway. So
and Nubbins was credited as the hitchhiker, and now he's Nubbins.
Yes. And Bubba was credited as Leatherface.
Yeah. And for a while, I always thought maybe like Bubba's his name, and now I still I don't know, I still like to think of when Texas Chainsaw 3D is like, no, it's Jedediah, or you know, whatever.
Right, Jed.
Bubba's just like, you know, I've known 2 other Bubbas in my life, neither of which were born named Bubba.
Yes.
They're just
so it's
Bubba.
Like a nickname. Yeah.
That's what I've come to expect.
But it was confusing as fuck for a first time and second and third and fourth time watch, when I was just kind of like, what's okay. So he's Bubba now. All right, whatever. But beginning the inconsistencies. Also given that like Jim Seedow is kind of the only connective tissue besides Tobe Hooper And Kim Hinkle didn't produce this one either, did he?
No.
No.
Kim Hinkle was gone until the fourth one.
Yeah. But I have to say, seeing Jim Sito again come in win that chili cook-off and everything,
and his little suit and his hat,
it makes me smile so big. I'm like, in an odd way. And also seeing Stretch again, I mean, because I've seen the movie before. I watched that today too. So I was watching the second she's on screen. I just felt like I was visiting an old friend. I'm just kind of like, there you are. I love you. I just love watching you be in your element, and I can't say enough. Like she's just the best. And also LG, I feel the same way about. Breaks my heart every single time. So that's all characters and shit.
Let me just jump in on the characters.
Jump in, please. Go for it.
No, I want to agree with you and chime in with Stretch. Stretch is, and I feel comfortable saying this, but I always have to go, let me explain myself. Stretch is my favorite final girl of this franchise. And in general, one of my favorite final girls. Yeah. No offense to Sally. Because as a performance, it's great. But to me, like when you go, who's your favorite final girl? I'm like, well, yeah, I know she was in the original, and it's a great performance, and it's a classic. But all she does is survive. No, I mean, it takes a lot mentally to survive that. And I'm not taking that away from her as a character. God damn it, she survives. But she's tied to a chair and she escapes. That's actually a better word. She escapes. Stretch, rolls up her fucking sleeves and like goes. And to me, within this franchise, that's what makes her a way better quote unquote final girl, if you're just gonna focus on that kind of aspect.
She actually gets to say one of my favorite lines. This is my chance to stop playing headbanging music and do something real.
Right?
I'm on your side. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel comfortable saying that, but I always have to apologize for, like, no offense to Sally, but she is a magnificent, it's a great performance. It's a very likable character.
Yeah.
I agree with everything you said. I just want to chime in with one additional note, because otherwise I'd just be repeating what you said. She is ballsy in a way that I know I wouldn't be. Because if I was at my job and fucking Leatherface and Chop Top came in and did what they did, if I managed to survive that and I go outside and I see them getting in a truck and driving away, my first thought would be like, holy shit, I survived that. I'm getting the fuck out of here, or I'm calling the police. But like, goddamn, like, all right, what next? What next here? What next? My thought would never be, I'm gonna go follow them. No. I would stay and try my best to never see them again. My whole life would be dedicated to finding places where I will never see them again. And her first instinct is, oh, I'm going to go follow them. Holy shit. She's better than me. She's better than me.
Me too.
And they do a good job of, and also, but it comes down to that line though, of like, she has ambitions. She wants to do something to make a difference, to have her life. And then the fact that, and that's obviously why she's willing to help Lefty, to play the thing on the radio. Like, she is an active person. So it doesn't come out of nowhere. But even with those intentions, even if I was like, one day I want to do this and I'm going to help Lefty out, I still, after surviving that, would be like, well, I'm going to give my report to Lefty. I'm going to give my report to the police, and I'm moving.
Goodbye, Texas. Yes.
Right. So she is a magnificent lead, because I believe everything about, her choices.
Caroline Williams is amazing.
She's fantastic.
Yeah. And because also another thing, just in line with, I agree with everything you said. And on top of it, I would have just been daunted by the social awkwardness of good night, good night,
night,
good night,
good night.
Good night. I can't. What the fuck do you do?
Yeah, and well, that's one of the the later movies don't necessarily have this, but that again, that thing, that menace of like, like, I'm laughing at you and you can't reason with me. Like, you can't reason with Chop Top in that scene.
No.
And the fact that they are lucid enough to be laughing at you, but there's not a screw. The screw's not all the way there, but there's enough of a screwness to like they're screwed in tight enough to still fuck with you. I don't know. Yeah.
It's that same thing with Kirk in the van of just like walking the tightrope. That's exactly
Good night.
what Stretch is doing in that whole, just like, you're my fave, you know, like, and she's
and
just
if you
like,
ask him to flat out, like, can you please leave? That's the sentence that might have him turn and kill you. So you
exactly.
don't say that. And how
so
do you,
show him Mr. Shark and show him Rubber Man and show him another lamp and show that's the end of the tour.
Oh, and just the glee, his response to everything.
And that presentation of Leatherface, we've already been presented with him on the bridge, but then to be reintroduced to him,
the light comes on,
bursting out of that little record storage unit room, whatever you want to call it. And it gets me every single time. It's not even, I know it's coming.
And I know it's coming.
It's timed perfectly. So even if you know it's coming, it still makes you go, and then we get a movie where Bubba sprouts antlers, you know, as it were. Something about, also I love the way I didn't get to say this about Edwin Neal. Like, one of the things I love about his performance as Hitchhiker in the Van is that the inner monologue that's going on inside of his head is so abundantly clear. Like, he's not hard to follow, actually. Like, he's on another planet for sure, but you can see him responding in his face and everything like that. And I feel like everything that Caroline Williams and that Johnson, what's his name? This Leatherface? I forgot his name. I like it. Bill Johnson. Really, really good performance from him. Totally different Leatherface, yet close enough that I'm like, yeah, that's Leatherface. I'll take it.
And I like him as this Leatherface.
Yeah, me too.
Like, forget the first movie. What you've got for this movie and this story and what you're doing, I like it. I like him.
Yeah, like, keep it. Yeah, absolutely.
His eyes.
Jesus. Again, the eyes and the mouth acting.
Yep. And in the combination with this mask. It all really works. But I mean, the idea of essentially having Leatherface kind of falling in love, and just there's so much between him and Stretch, and again, I mean, I like Gunnar Hansen, but I'm glad we had this guy doing this with what he's got, because it's great.
Oh, me too, totally. I no regrets. I'm just kind of like, okay, cool. I love having my Gunnar there. You're my Leatherface, but Bill. Yeah, fucking A, man. Like, no complaints. But I just love the whole progression of her breaking down what's going on in his mind.
Yes.
And again, walking that tightrope of like, and it's easy. It's so funny that it's easier to walk that line with Leatherface than it is with Chop Top. But she found a way in, as it were, and it was an interesting. Everything about this movie felt like, I don't know if it's a natural progression, but it was an interesting progression for these characters. The ones that carried over, even with Drayton, there was something oddly warm about him this time, and people have talked about the symbolism, the greater kind of sociological implications of the first movie kind of planting the seed for being like a post Vietnam America, and another industrial age and the dehumanization of the workforce and stuff like that being planted with, like, putting people out of jobs so you can shoot them in the head. And with this movie, it's all about small businesses and what they're driven to do to stay aloft. Like, here, Drayton Sawyer is a small business owner,
and he has to monologue about it.
And he has to move it's successful. Like, he's thriving. His business is doing quite well, and they've been keeping a relatively low profile for 12 years, but I thought it was significant that they had kind of like vacated their homestead and moved into another failed business as their home, and we're literally watching, by the end of the movie, kind of their business fail. So I mean, again, you can read into it what you want to, I suppose, but I don't think you can read things in that haven't had the seeds planted for them. I mean, there's enough commentary there. I mean, with his little speech and talking about like, like taking it up the ass when you're a small businessman and stuff like that. And also he said they take it in the ass and they kick you in the dick. That he said like a few moments later too.
In the era of Reaganomics,
everything about
and everything going Japanese corporate,
Yes. And I mean, I even love just like that when Lefty finally shows up and they all notice him. And he's like, "I'm the Lord of the Harvest," and Drayton's like, "Who's that? Some new health food bunch?" Like, I love you. I love you, Drayton. I mean, I don't agree with you ethically in what you do, but I something about like seeing you continue to struggle in life. Like you were struggling before. You were talking about like, if you leave the lights on all night, then it's you're gonna lose your shirt or whatever the thing is. And to see him continually having to be kind of the head of this household and the mind behind the budgeting and the and all of that, I love it.
I want to ask you something about Drayton being speaking of head of the household. I've always when I think of this movie or this series, especially the first two, I've always thought of Drayton as Nubbins and Chop Top and Leatherface's father.
And that a lot of people did.
And then somewhere over the years, I've seen a lot of like, no, they're all brothers, and that Drayton's just the older brother.
Yeah.
Did you like? Where do you fall on that?
The first time I saw it, I remembered. It was such a mind fuck. I just thought they're family. That's all I knew.
Right. I feel a paternal performance from him. And he could be the older brother put into a paternal role.
What made me,
but the way he chastises them, it feels like an abusive dad.
The look what your brother did to the door could be more paternal than fraternal, but the thing is, I think about their interaction at the table and telling him he's just a cook and everything like that, and it's something that I feels wildly fraternal and feels
well, there's evidence for both in the movie, which is I just was curious.
As far as I know, it's canon that they're all brothers.
Yes,
so
it is.
Yeah,
it's something that I found out later. But
I think I can't remember a time where I didn't think brothers in either movie.
Without
aside from just being shocked and not thinking anything, I don't think I ever thought he was their father, but I can understand the confusion. So
yeah, and what solidified it for me more until I found out that they were brothers was that in Texas Chainsaw 3, the family has a mother, and people are like, "Who the fuck is this new family?" I'm like, "Well, no, the impression I got was like Drayton and her conceived a family, and he lives here, and they're separated. Maybe she's over there."
Well,
but it turns out that now if they're all brothers, well, I hate when people refer to them as the inbred cannibals. I'm like, where's the evidence of inbreeding? I don't see it. However,
Edwin Neal, and then I'll say the rest, but I want to let you finish. Go ahead.
No, but if they're brothers, she can't be fucking Mama from 3 cannot be Drayton's mother. She's younger than him, so like that goes out the window. That's all I was gonna say. We'll talk about
maybe he
later,
just ages terribly with all the stress, but I think the way Edwin Neal put it in one of his interviews was if the other two were one generation of inbreeding, the Hitchhiker's like 3. Like, and I think he put it the way it's just like his mother's mother is probably his mother.
Yeah. I mean, I feel I don't want to default to like, oh, well, they're inbred. Why? Because Texas and South. Like, I don't. You have to look at we have to look at what's in the movie, and there isn't a lot in the movie.
No, but
yes, they're inbred.
The thing is, Edwin Neal, being as hands-on as he was, and also working on as much background as he did with the character, I don't feel like he just made that up. I feel like they were supposed to, on some level, be inbred, and I don't feel like that was a comment on Texans, I felt like that was a comment on like just how far gone
Sure.
and how removed these people are from social society, social graces and normalcy and all that kind of thing. But because I do not, the first two movies maybe, but from then on I really don't draw much connection between the movies, because I do feel like I'm just kind of watching. We'll get there, but I just start to feel like I'm watching movies be made instead of someone taking care to create a mythology.
Yes. I used to draw connections to them, and over time I've learned to just be like, no, like 3 really does just they're their own things. But I used to, and it was kind of fun to try to make them all fit.
Well, we can keep trying, but
whatever.
No,
So the instant I knew I liked Stretch, was the second she's like, "Don't call me darling, damn it." I'm like, "Oh, I like you." And then the fact that he's like, "What, darling?" I'm like, "Okay, I like the two of you. Like, clearly, this is a fun relationship that you two have." Guy, I forget that guy's name. The guy who's playing LG, who was like the second assistant cameraman on Texas Chainsaw 1. He's now an actor, but just and Lord knows I'm sure you've seen making of stuff like that. Like he, without the dialogue, he is that dude. Like that is his voice.
So
that
sweet.
Is his drawl. That is his
spirit.
Tone.
He's lovable.
He's great.
Fuck.
Love him. Yeah. He gives great interview too. If you ever watch the bonus stuff on Texas Chainsaw 2.
Oh, absolutely.
He gives good. And he talked about how, like, I won't tell you every little anecdote, but he was talking about how like fans will ask him like, "Was that really your loogie, or did they give you something?" And he's like, "People ask me that, and it's like, no, I mean, we all got loogies. Everybody's got loogies. This is just my stuff. We all got. Why don't people use them more? We all got them." I fucking love this dude.
Lou Perryman is his name. I just had to look it up because I wanted to honor him. Absolutely adore him. I think the loogies that I probably like the least, but yeah.
I also, compared to, like, let's say, if you count Grandma's fucking corpse upstairs, there's in both movies, 1 and 2. 1 and 2, you've got 5 Sawyers, you've got 5 protagonists. The third movie, you've got 3. It's like a smaller grouping. And it's, I mean,
well, 5 if you count the yuppies in the beginning.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah, but that's one. Well, it's 2 scenes. That's 2 scenes. But what it comes down to me is that you've got, even though it cost more, you have a smaller cast, and you've got what feels like essentially, even though there may be larger sets, it's a radio station, it's a couple externals, at a hotel and the side of a road, and then you've got like the last half of the movie is in this magnificent set. But I like the focus of this one. It doesn't become a bigger thing with a wider range of characters and a bigger story. It's very focused in what it does. And I respect that. And one of the thing I respect about that more than anything, it isn't just the fact that, like, oh, we're going to go like sillier comedy with it, but I love the fact that it's a wildly different tone. Yeah. But it's also a completely different story. It does not open with a bunch of kids in a van. It immediately has a different structure it has like an inciting incident, which then leads to the introduction of like this character and then the third act of her, going like, it's a completely different thing, which you don't often see in horror movies or even Hollywood things in general, which is do the thing that worked again.
Yeah, right.
In fact, and we'll get to it with 3, but even though 3 and 4, especially 3, do things that are similar, like 3 also isn't just repeating 1 or 2 completely. It's one of the things I kind of like about this franchise is that but 2 more than any other ones, like completely different. If you wanted that same, not even just the same vibe, but if you wanted to be like, oh, well, let's watch another movie about kids who get stuck in a house, like there is no fucking house.
No.
And that set is magnificent.
Yeah. No, it's it was funny because I saw I've seen it so many times, but something about like watching it today and watching poor Stretch fall down that hole. And
Oh,
I thought like, oh my God, for the first time I'm thinking like it's like a fucked up I mean it's fucked up anyway, but I mean it's like an even more fucked up like kind of Alice in Wonderland with the amount of falling she has to do down, down, down. But then I also thought like the lighting makes me feel like she's also falling into hell, you know, and of course she is. But there's so much that happens on that set too that I enjoy. I mean, and it's hard to say enjoy because there's a lot of it that makes me very uncomfortable. One of the most incredible sequences that I again felt like kind of like next level for me, and not an echo of, you know, or a shadow of the first movie, was Leatherface working on somebody like he does, but we see it differently, and we see somebody else see it differently, with Stretch there watching LG get half his body stripped off and his full face and head, like scalp, like just pulled off of him. And then Leatherface finds her. That's terrifying enough, especially for me. But then she's maintained this context with him where she can say, no, not good, no good, no good. And then he wants to be good. And actually he starts thinking it could be good with you, but you know what? I want a playmate. So you're gonna put on this new fresh face that I have. I remember the first thing that bothered me the most about it was just imagining how it's staying on is he's looping LG's ears behind her ear. Yeah. And it's your friend. I mean, it's gross anyway, but imagine it's your friend's face. And you're terrified. You don't want to upset the elephant, don't want to poke the badger. So you're just like, all right, fine. Yep. And then he puts the hat on, and then he wants to dance, and then he wants to spin you. Scares the shit out of me. And then he's got business, so he's gonna tie you up, and keep you there. And then LG's gonna wake up, and then you're gonna recognize him, and he's gonna recognize you. He's gonna want to get you free. Heartbreak. He's gonna be like dizzy and not know what he's doing. He's holding a knife, and it's scary because it's like he could stab you accidentally, gets you free, and then he dies. And I was just like it moves me, just her saying, I love you, LG. Oh God, it's so fucking sad, because this is the thing. I knew that LG loved her. I don't think he was necessarily in love with her, but I do think that if she would have been willing to see what's there and go the next step or whatever, he totally would have been down. Right. But he liked her enough, you know, and respected her enough to just be kind of like, I'm cool, I'm down with whatever we got, just know I got your back, like in the best way possible. And I think she was used to kind of like crossing her arms and, you know, hand on her hips at him and stuff like that. So when she says she loves him, because I mean, because there's even that moment where he puts his, I'm gonna cry. Yep. When he puts his French fry house together, and she's just kind of, and at first she's almost scoffing at it, but then she just kind of looks at him and she's like, oh, LG. So then she gets to tell him she loves him. And you know, she's never said it before. And I love that I know this isn't like an unspoken like torch she's been carrying or anything like that. That's not who Stretch is. But she loves him the way we love him. Of course, who wouldn't love LG? So she's just, I love you. And also now he's gone, and the loss and the everything, so much. And that's just like one sequence that happens in this, in a pocket of this set.
Well,
kills me.
You going back to the start of your thing, you were focusing on Leatherface and her and LG's, you know, mask and all that.
Yeah.
Another thing that I like about Stretch is that she, and again, I don't even know if I would You know, when you watch a movie and then people complain about like, why are they doing this? And I'm like, well, because you are sitting on your couch and you're being logical. They're in the middle of something stressful, so they don't get to be logical.
Right.
Um, very few people would, in the middle of being chased by Leatherface, would stop to quickly psychoanalyze what his deal is and then try to work their way out, talk him out of it, to try to speak to
Right.
him.
Right.
That's not a very common thing to see in movies,
No.
and I like that they wrote her to be that. It's one of my
Yeah.
favorite things about her is that she tries to figure it out.
She does what I can't.
Because I know in that moment I wouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't have the focus to be able to do that. And bless her, she does. Also, I think it's so funny that it had been observed for a very long time that within the horror genre, when killers have their thing, whether it's an axe or a machete or a knife, it's always observed / critiqued that it is a phallus. It is a phallic symbol, and it's always the man. It's a male killer and a woman. And I like that this movie is like, okay, we're gonna make that the text.
Yeah.
No. He's gonna the chainsaw, like he's gonna hold it at his crotch and he's gonna point it at her crotch. We're gonna make it a thing. We're not gonna be subtle about like, oh, have you been observing this about the genre? Okay, well then here it fucking is. So not only is it a nice little commentary, but also in its own terms, horrifying to have a chainsaw like gliding up your thigh towards your crotch.
Yeah,
and still finding the energy to reason with him on his mental terms.
Yep.
And then I just also like the idea of like him like trying to start it up well, just give me a second. Like, no, this never happens. This never happens. I swear to God. Like it is like, no. Like his fucking face is
yeah. There's also something about the rage that follows that always made me feel like this is the lion roar. Like something in his eyes told me, yeah, look how good I am. I can cut this. I can cut this. It's kind of adorable, and also starts to veer into an almost rom-com between the two of them area, in that she has to meet the family. And that the family
that's what makes it a dark comedy.
Yeah, the family has traditions and she's not about it, and he's like the peacekeeper. All he wants to do is just like, oh, it's like the whole time that she's tied to that chair. What a chair. And going through, the dinner part 2 scene. I love that he's really trying to just kind of like calm her down. Just like, it's okay, honey, it'll all be over soon. Just maybe you'll like it. Like, I mean, I can feel like that's what makes it a dark comedy. Yeah.
They did for well. I mean, it was such a big hit. I get like, we're gonna do the Breakfast Club poster.
Yeah.
But if they wanted to be more accurate to what the movie is, it should have been like her and Leatherface, like back to back. And like, guess who's coming to dinner? They should have given me that poster because that's actually more. Also, did you when I was a kid growing up at the video store, I remember passing by Texas Chainsaw 2 and like not necessarily being confused, but like I'm in the horror section, but this looks like a comedy. Because like they're like Leatherface and like they're all seated. There's like it. I didn't even know the Breakfast Club poster yet, but like I knew like, or I'd seen the Breakfast Club poster, but I didn't know like what it was. I didn't know what the movie was, but I remember seeing that box going like, this is a comedy, but it's in horror. I understand that there's monsters on the cover of this, but this feels safe and fun. I don't understand.
I don't share that.
Such a strange poster. I was never scared by it.
It still unsettles me. I don't like looking at it.
Of course it does.
I have my Scream Factory edition, and I'm so glad that the bonus features disc covers that cover when I open it up, and then I have the alternate cover on the outside. I flip it. I have the poster as my outer usually
one.
If I have the slip cover, and I do have the slip cover, but usually when I have a slip cover, I'm like, okay, I already have that cover, so I'm going to flip to the original one that I saw in the video store when I was a child and put that outside, and and it's awesome. It's like best of both worlds. I don't do that with Texas Chainsaw Part 2 because there is still something looming and it doesn't make me laugh. It makes me very, very uncomfortable seeing
Fair
them
enough.
just perched anywhere. I don't like it.
I'll tell you one other little thing that just amuses me about this. Only when I think of
Yes.
the logistics of it, because I think it's a nice gag at first, and then you unpack it and I go, "Oh, this is just funny. It's silly." So Lefty is and I love how sequely it is. He is the uncle
Mhm.
of Franklin and Sally, and I love. First of all, I love that set, that long tunnel, just with the
Yeah.
tableaus, like on the fishing trip and at the beach and all that shit, all these lights, all that stuff. I like. If there was ever a walkthrough maze of Texas Chainsaw 2, like I want to do that.
Oh, there has been. Yeah.
Oh, of 2?
Universal Horror Nights did one a
I
couple
must have
years
missed that
back.
one then. Dang.
It was good.
Was-
It was good.
okay,
But
I was gonna say, well,
if there's any
did they
luck,
do the
they'll do it
tunnel?
again. It was good. God, you know what? I honestly can't tell you. I was screaming.
Of course. Well,
I'm too traumatized.
Yeah,
I don't
I
remember.
know, because we've talked about how, like, because when they did Texas Chainsaw 1 as a maze,
Yeah.
you were like a wreck. We didn't go together,
Okay.
but
No.
the whole time I was Cartman at Casa Bonita. I was just like, wow, oh, they're doing the dinner scene. Cool. Like, I was having the best time, and you were
No,
look at your face.
I was there with my sister and with a friend. Sorry, folks, a little tangent. And I just remember we had to go into the house. Fuck that. I fucking hate that shit, but I love it. But I go into the house and it looks like the house. There's the dinner table. It's fucking me up. And there's Leatherface. And the thing that fucked me up the most was when I got to the gas station at night. Because I know what's gonna happen. And you have to walk like, on the boards and shit. And I'm like, I don't want to. And the rest of it's black. It's just vast blackness. It was probably a room, it was probably like a shoebox of a room, but it was all black, so it looked vast and it looked like nighttime, and I was terrified. Out of nowhere jumps Leatherface. And what do? I fall to the ground in like a fetal position, but not on my side, still on my feet, but I'm just hugging my knees. And I don't even know if I hugged him. I think I was just clenching. I was just a clenched, standing, fetal position man. And my sister and my friend were behind me, and they were laughing and pointing. And Leatherface knew he had gold, and he just kept whirring the chainsaw around me. And then it would eventually give out, and it start to slow down. Go. And I'm like, and I'm screaming the whole time. And I'm just kind of like, excuse me, I just want to go. I just want to go. Oh my God. And I don't know how long we were there. It was a while. It felt like forever. But eventually, I guess we were holding up the traffic. Everybody was enjoying watching me cower, though.
People waiting were probably laughing too.
Yeah, no, I bet.
Oh, yeah.
I bet. And then, but I remember, and then finally by the end, there was, they do that one last scare where like Leatherface jumps out at you and everything like that. And I was like, not today. And I just ran probably, I'd say a good 100 feet from the maze just to be away. I didn't mind if somebody else jumped at me. It's not Leatherface. And that's all that matters. Yeah. And that's how.
I was just, oh, cool. Oh, look at that. Remember that from the fan? Yeah. Wow. Yeah. No,
and I just would have been wild screaming. If we ever do that maze or any kind of Leatherface featuring maze, you know where I'll be.
Yeah.
I'll be a puff of smoke shaped like me, and in that direction.
I did the Texas, I did the other one that remember there was a year where it was New Line, like they had like I think
and they did Freddy,
first
Jason,
year Leatherface.
Yeah.
I remember doing the Texas Chainsaw reboot maze.
Yeah,
that sucks. But I remember
Leatherface is. I mean, we'll get there, but
yeah,
in person,
math is math.
Leatherface.
Yeah, no. What I was saying before. So the tunnel.
Sorry.
When Lefty is exploring,
he
comes across Franklin's skeleton in a wheelchair, and I remember thinking,
I was just going to ask you about that.
What were you going to ask?
How does he know it's Franklin?
Well, because that's one of those things. It's kind of like, there's been a lot of observations about like Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, where there's all these beats that are like, those are beats for the audience, but why is it a beat for these characters? And like,
right.
We get that it's Franklin. He's even got a little flashlight. How does Lefty know that that's Franklin and his flashlight? You know, unless, well, no. Remember that for his 8th birthday, I got him a flashlight.
And
That's
literally,
Uncle.
I wouldn't even ask if literally the next scene Stretch didn't pass by another corpse in a wheelchair.
They're just littered everywhere.
They're just
no,
everywhere. I'm just like, well, that might not be Franklin then. But I never thought about it until today, actually. But yeah,
well,
it occurred to me. I
no,
was like, wait, how does he know? It made me laugh.
Eddie. He knows. He just knows.
Oh, that's true.
I was just thinking about how, like, because it was on this viewing where when I was watching 1, and I did watch these in almost release order. So I watched 1, and when they've recovered Franklin, his wheelchair is collapsed in the room, and it's, you know, implied that he's, you know, like, I think he's on the table. So once they've packed up and moved, because obviously I always took it after the events of the first movie, like, that girl, she got away. Well, she gonna tell the police we gotta leave right now. Pack up whatever we can get. And I like that they were like, and pack up that fucking fat boy in his wheelchair. Tableaus. But I just remember, his wheelchair being collapsed. So I thought it was so funny because I imagined the fact that they get there and actually like open it up and like put him back in it. But not only that, the flashlight is an identifier for us, but I like the fact that Leatherface went back out there and grabbed his flashlight, which I don't think is with the wheelchair in the first movie, in the, you know, when they have it in the house. But like, they're like, no, remember we found him, like, be sure to put a flashlight there with him, even though you can tell it's not the same model or anything. But yeah, I love that they like, no, this is what he looked like when I got it. Put the flashlight. It's a nice little these little
memories of the folks that I chainsawed. Yeah.
Just some bloody memories. Do
you have anything left there? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I have one barely anything left, but I just another thing that I like is, again, like, it's so different. It doesn't repeat a lot. I talked about how blatantly different it is, but pretty much the only trope that I was really aware of is we're gonna have another dinner scene.
Yeah,
we're gonna have Grandpa try to mallet you, but it doesn't repeat a lot, and I respect that. Anyway.
And that was only because Cannon wanted it. Like, Tobe Hooper did not want to do that. And Cannon was like, what is this? We wanted Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Make Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He's like, I made Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like, if you don't want us to pull our funding, you got to put in a dinner scene, because people are going to be like, where's the dinner scene? Because they're idiots at Cannon. But obviously, I mean, idiots I'm so glad made movies in the 80s. But
if we didn't have them, I wouldn't have Masters of the Universe and the Apple. So bless them.
Like I said. But no.
Or Texas Chainsaw 2. So bless them. Anyway.
Yeah, sure. Why not? But and I mean, it still works. I mean, I watch it and I'm just kind of like, well, there's things that are little things here and there that are different. And then once we get Lefty in there, it's different all over. And I love it to the end where first one ended with that majestic shot of, infamous, iconic now, of Leatherface with the chainsaw. I love something about head on.
I think it's just as majestic.
It's amazing, and
it's just
great pulling out.
Oh yeah,
woman in mountain, like woman in the elements, like
and she's like digging it
because it's also manic, but it's empowered mania. I love that. Yeah,
and I think you touched upon this earlier, but I truly want like more of like I wanted. If you're gonna give me a sequel, like I wanted Stretch. Like, where does she go from there? In a way that I don't need to know where Sally goes from there. But Stretch is a more empowered, active, and if you ever did like a sequel, horror movies keep the same villain and rotate the cast. But if you ever to keep her story going, god damn, do I want to know what next? What next?
Oh, okay. I've got a big thing to say about that in a second. But last thing I'll say about this movie is I appreciated the fact that Chop Top had an affinity for music the way I felt like the Hitchhiker Nubbins had an affinity for art. I did feel like he was an artist. Like he was the one going out in the cemetery, mounting all those things and everything like that. And he had, his little, it's a good picture. You pay me now, and all, all that stuff. Like he was an artist. But I love that Drayton is something of a philosopher. One of my favorite lines he says, in addition to all of his, social and political commentary, I just love. He says, "I got one choice, boy: sex or the saw. Sex is, well, nobody knows, but the saw is family."
Poetic.
And aside from like creating or getting to say the line that ultimately kind of like becomes, I think, the Sawyer family creed, which is the saw is family, from here on out. I love the fact that there's this ambiguity around sex, and that he's speaking to the place that Leatherface seems to be thinking from, and says like, nobody knows what that is. Like, it's not something you can rely on. It's not. It doesn't always mean love, but sometimes it does. It doesn't always mean, passion or satisfaction, but sometimes it does. Like nobody knows what it is. Also, the fact that he's, I don't know if I can call him what I can categorize him as, but whatever it is, whatever category you want to put him in, whatever label fits, chances are sex isn't at the top of his list and never has been. Yeah. No. So I just wanted, I heard that line again today, and I was just like, that's so worth writing down. I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life, more so because I wrote it down now,
Yeah.
And that's what I've got for this one.
That's what you got for 2. Well, let's come back for 3 in the next video.
Woohoo!
And because I got some stuff for 3. So join us next time. Same bat time. Same. There is no scheduled time, so whatever. Thanks for joining me, Eddie.
Thank you.